All right, hi y'all. End of a long road. That looks like it's good. Hi Zoomers, nice to see y'all. Step 12. I am Laura, I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is 2/23/13, and I have a sponsor. I sponsor, and my sponsees have sponsees. So I am in the middle of the program, and I'm grateful for that. I'm going to ask that we pray, because I have been in tears all morning. I don't know if the Spirit's got me or what, or I'm just nervous, but I need a prayer right now. So let's go. God, today help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about others, and everything I think I know about my own recovery, so that I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Amen. So the 12th step is having had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps. We try to carry the message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. So to me, a spiritual experience, in the back of the book, it says it could be a white light or it could be a slow educational variety. And I have talked to you all about my experience at the beach house, that I had a very I had a relationship with God early on, and I drank that away. And then when I came back from that very first meeting, I read in the book that in the doctor's opinion that I could have my own idea of a relationship, and I didn't have to involve the church, and that I felt restored right away to that one-on-one relationship. And that was a foundation for me to build on my AA experience. But I still needed to have a different experience through the steps. So I had a restoration experience with my higher power at that first, but that was not my spiritual experience, because I was still riddled with shame and guilt, and I still needed to go through the work of the 12 steps. So I just wanted to, I still had the parade in my head and the circus going around, all the noise. But I had a clear idea of who God was and my relationship to him. And that was the first time I had that in 30 years. And that was an epiphany for me, and it was very comforting. So I wanted to start that off with that kind of caveat. I also learned in reading Richard Rohr's Breathing Underwater a difference between two relationships that we can have with God. One is a restorative relationship where we are restored to God. And then another one is a retributive relationship. And sometimes the church brings us into that kind of relationship where God is kind of retribution. And that's where you have to go and do things, say certain prayers and do certain things to be restored to God. And so that's the kind of church I grew up in, that God was a retributive God. And he was going to get me because I had done bad things. And so in AA, I learned a different kind of a God and a relationship with God where I would be restored to God and my higher power through the steps. And so that is a very big dichotomy of where I learned about my higher power and God, a completely different view of my relationship to God and my higher power in AA than I ever did in church, because I was being restored to my God and my higher power through the 12 steps. And I wasn't having to do, God wasn't a retributive God. And I learned that here in these rooms. I didn't just learn how not to drink. Everybody thinks that. And that is probably the biggest gift of my life, is learning that and being restored and learning that simple message. And that lesson has enabled me not to drink. And that lesson is what I want to share with people every day and change, because it's such a simple message, but it's such a vital message, and it's such a transformational way of how I do life. And so that sets me in a different way of how I view the world totally, and how I view myself totally, because I do view myself as forgiven instead of needing to be forgiven. And when I lived my whole life as needing to be forgiven, I always had to do something else to get there. And so I was never good enough. And so when I live my life as forgiven, I'm always coming from a place of wanting to give and a place of giving. And that's why I want to share and be of service to everybody. And I'm always in a place of giving. And it's a very different perspective of the way I live my life. And I learned that in AA. So when I go back and I look at step one and the principles of AA, and I look at honesty, it's much easier for me to be honest because I'm already coming back from the perspective I'm already forgiven, so I can be honest. If I've done something wrong, I can be honest with myself and others. But when I was drinking and I looked at that first night and I had to call my brother in Chicago and ask him, after my husband had called me, I think most of y'all have been here the whole time, but I'll give a thumbnail sketch. I had had a bad business deal, and I started drinking, and I had drank 3/4 of a bottle of Jack Daniels, and I started drunk texting and drunk dialing people. And my brother-in-law called my husband and said, "She's not making sense, and you need to say something about your wife." And so my husband called me and really scolded me for the first time ever about my drinking. And that scared me. And so I called my brother Charles, who had been in the program, and I said, do you think I'm an alcoholic? And so for me to be honest and ask that question, booze is kind of insidious. It hides things, right? It's stealthy. It sneaks up on us, and it lets me keep lying to myself and keep piling on. And all those times I lied myself and said, oh, I really did stay out till I got in at 1. All of those lies add up over the years, and those are soul darkening. And so I just lied to myself and said those things don't matter, but they do matter, and they did matter. And so when I called Charlie and I said, do you think I'm an alcoholic? And he said, I can't tell you that, but let's get you to an AA meeting and see. And so I went to an AA meeting the next morning, and he goes, Laura, just leave what you don't like and take the rest. Or he probably said it backwards. Well, take what you like and leave the rest, right? So what I heard there, and all of us in AA now, we know that when there's a newbie in the room, right, we kind of shift the meeting and for the newcomer, right? So they all had been alerted that I was drunk and I was new and needed a meeting. And so I'm sure they adjusted, for newcomer content. But I heard what I needed to hear, and I heard hope, and the people were so kind to me, and they encouraged me to come to a meeting the next day, and they gave me phone numbers. Then they gave me, and so I did, and I came out of that meeting with hope. And because before I did not think that I would ever be able to quit drinking, but they didn't tell me to quit drinking forever. And this was the news flash. It was just don't drink until tomorrow's meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. And that was a makeable part for me. And because I figured they said go to bed very early. Big carbohydrate dinner about 4 and go to bed early. And so I could do that, and that's good for me, and because they knew I was going to be hungover today. I was certainly still drunk in the morning. And so they had me read the doctor's opinion, and they had me read Dr. Bill's story, and so that led me to hope. And that came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity and hope. Up to that moment, I had not had hope. I hope I'm going to have a good sales deal, right? Hope that, my husband's not up at 2 when I'm home, right? Those kind of things. But I didn't really have a spiritual hope. It had been years since I had had any sort of that, or in my internal self, myself of hope. I didn't have that. And so here, when I left that meeting, I had hope in those people that they would be at the meeting and, wait for me the next day. And I actually, after I read the doctor's opinion and I learned that it was an allergy, I had learned for the first time that it was an allergy. And I had seen my dad die of alcoholism. And we never heard the word allergy in my family. Never once came up. He'd been in a million rehabs. We'd seen the ambulance come a million times. We would plead with him, please stop drinking, Dad, just for a week. We never, we've seen him for years get the delirious tremors, and then he'd pull threads off of it, and we gave him an empty spool to put the thread around. But never once was it just detox, Dad, and don't put any more booze in your body. Never heard that was an allergy. So when I read that in the beach house, my daughter has a peanut allergy, and I related immediately. And so I got some hope that, hey, if I just don't put more booze in my body, I won't have the cravings. And then when I heard that I could choose my own concept of God and I could get rid of the church, I had more hope because I wasn't going to have that entanglement. So I was very grateful for that hope, and these are the principles that we practice all the time. And so this was the first time that I was going to practice that principle and have hope in my life again for the first time in probably 30 years. I actually had hope. And then I read Bill's story, and I actually experienced hope again when I saw the hope in his program. First I identified with him, and then I saw the hope and how he worked, the program worked for him. And he found, how it worked for his friend, and then it worked for him. I saw if it worked for him, it's going to work for me. And it now obviously worked for the people in the room. So I actually had hope there too. So one time in 4 days, I actually had hope 4 times. And it was, of course, I didn't identify it as hope at that time, but it was that niggly familiar feeling that it just started to well up in me. And then step 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to God as we understood Him. Faith, again, was something. I was a faithless individual. You couldn't count on me. And you could count on me if it was going to serve me. And if I was going to make a buck, if it was going to make me look good, you could count on me. But otherwise, I was a faithless individual. And I came home from Jacksonville, and I had told you I went to a lot of meetings, and Claire got me all squared around AA, and I prayed the 3rd step prayer. I went on this long business trip, and I got squared away with AA, and enough to the point that I could practice the principle, the idea of faith on that 6-week business trip. And I learned and stretched some AA muscles and learned some concepts. Because I went to AA meetings, and then I listened to Joe and Charlie on that 6-week trip. So I came back sober, and I had some concepts of AA, and I was really ready to jump into AA when I came back from that 6-week trip. So I'm 6 weeks sober. I've done step 1, 2, and 3. I'm feeling hope. I see faith, and I'm practicing faith in my daily life. And I'm seeing honesty, and I'm practicing honesty in my daily life. So I'm actually practicing the principles in my early sobriety. And so my sponsor wants me to start doing some service work. And so she has me do some readings in the meetings. And, I couldn't get through a lot of those meetings. She had me read the promises, and I just couldn't get through them. I was just too emotional. And so, I get to maybe promise 3, and I'd pass it off. And a couple of times she would not take it. She would say, you have to just muscle through this and get through it, and I'd get the box on my neck, and I'll do this, but it was embarrassing, because I was so emotional. But, I got through that, and I learned how to read. And then at St. Nick's, they had, on Saturday mornings, they had a back room and they had a front room. And I remember, I don't know, maybe I was 8 weeks sober, and had just come back from that trip. And one of the Ray Rubas said, hey, come on back with us. And, in the front room, they had these for how it works. in the back room, they had this for how it works. Well, I didn't know how it works was in here. The next thing we Joe in charge, and I didn't know. It was, so I don't know, John Tucker or somebody said, hey, read how it works. I'm like, hobby. And I had no idea that it was in there, and I'm a professional, I come prepared for meetings. And they could just tell I did not know. And they're like, hey, your page number, darling. So I went home and I, looked up everything, all of these things, and I was like, folded the page in half of anything that I might ever need to read again, So, you live and learn. So that was absolutely humility, maybe humiliation. But, I certainly lived and learned, but that was early on service work. And then so the next week, I was sitting in the back of the open room, the big room. I was not going back there. And one of the guys says, hey, come on up with us in the other room. And why don't you make coffee? Well, in the back of that room, they had the coffee maker, and it had a big envelope, like one of those manila envelopes, and it said, to make coffee, and it had a big 4 on there, 4 scoops, and then somebody had X'd it out and said 3, and then they had X'd out the X out and put 4. So now I'm, sober a while, I know it's an A. So I'm like, okay, so, again, I'm blanched, I don't know, how am I gonna get fired, And so I look around, and John Tucker goes, just use 3.5. So, and again, a rookie mistake, I don't know. So, that was another rookie terror, off the list. And, so those are early service things, and just learning, to be of service, and then I wanted to be a part of it. And the way to be a part of it, St. Nick's, was to clean the club. Now I have a maid and have always had a maid, and but that was a way to be a part of. So I signed up, and I avoided the toilet part. I swept and I dusted, and I'm OCD, and that place was clean, and but it was really fun to be a part of the cleaning club, and, but I wanted to know which door do I take the trash out of, who do I use to brush, so I always had to make sure I was following the rules just because I'm that kind of a alcoholic. But that was, that was part of my, service work early on because, I just wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to do service work. And so, but then it was time, I was building up some easy, some service work, and then it was time to do, have some courage and get my step 4 done. And I had told you all that I did it on a Post-it note the first time. And, I was not faithful in the way I did my 4th step the first couple of times. And, but I finally did get that done, and it did take a lot of courage and a lot of honesty for me to get that done because I was so used to lying to myself and telling myself my own stories that I believed my own bullshit. And it really made me, and it's hard to look back at the stories and tell them apart and tear them apart and put them down on a piece of paper with 4 words or less and put it in a checkbox. And because I had long stories that had complicated backstories. And to be able to boil it down and to break it down and to leave all the BS behind and to put it just black and white and just leave it there and not have a story was very difficult for me. And but I finally got it done. And then that led me to integrity, to be able to tell that story without the backstory. And that was very hard. And Claire smartly had me do it in the diner, and I've told you all about that. And then willingness to change and willingness to look at those obstacles. And to look at those, and a lot of those things were my survival skills. Those were things that I used because, well, remember, I grew up in a very trauma-filled environment, and it was a war zone. And I had used a lot of those skills to survive. And I took a lot of those survival skills into the world with me. But when I'm using war tactics on people that are normal, it hurts. You know, they're unsuspecting, you know, because I'm coming at them with a bazooka and they're expecting a hello, you know, and I just whack them. And it's, you know, it hurts. And sometimes it was successful because it was a surprise attack in business room. But other times it was very damaging and hurtful, and it hurt my reputation and it hurt me. So I had to be willing to let those go, and I had to be willing to really look at those things. And willingness was not something, because I'm an alcoholic, I do not like things to change. And I don't like things, I like things the way they are. It makes me safe because I'm a trauma victim, and it keeps me safe. And I don't like things to change, but I needed to be willing to try things in a different way so that I could change and I could develop character. Because I wanted that more than anything. I really wanted to be a woman of grace and a woman of character and a woman of integrity. And I needed to put those old battle tools down and pick up new tools that would make me a woman of integrity and grace. And then sort of humility. And this was something that I couldn't demand God, because that was my skill. I demanded things, you know, I expect things. You know who I am, you better get this done, you know, and I couldn't do that with God, you know, and I couldn't do that, you know, and these things, I had to say, I had these things, God, please remove them, and I had to wait. And wait. And during the waiting, I had to act as if. And acting as if it's because I have these war arsenal that I can pick up so easy, you know, and acts really works well when you're used to using it. And I had to really work very hard not to pick up those old tools, and I had to wait and put those things down. I had to choose to respond instead of react, you know. And I had to choose courage instead of fear. And fear was such a garment that I held so closely, and a crown that I wore. And it was my disguise, and I kept you away, and it kept my ego good. And it was who I showed you. And it was very, very hard to open that up and be who I was and show you integrity and honesty. And intimacy. It was very difficult to do that. But, you know, when I waited and I paused and I let myself open up, I was able to be of service, I was able to be vulnerable, and I was able to show my experience to you and let you learn from that. Because a lot of people had been through trauma, just like I had been, and had experience from that and could see that. And one time I had been asked to talk at Saturday night San Marco. And, you know, I did not think I had anything to say at Saturday night at San Marco. You know, it was just my life. And my sponsor at 8 o'clock, you know, I mean, that's a big room. I don't have that much to say, and I'm not that interesting. You know, that's for the big time. And so I had headliners on Saturday. And so my sponsor said, no, you will speak. You've been asked, you must go, you have to do this. And so I got my hair done, my nails done, and I was just terrified going up there. And, you know, she literally sent me up there shaking and crying. And my voice cried, and my voice was shaking when I started. And, you know, once I started, I do not remember what I said. And people came up and said, and the room was emptying out. And this girl came up to me, and she had green hair, all the tats, white beater, cargo pants, and do-rag. You guys get the picture, right? Opposite of me. And she puts her hands on her hips, and she goes, and she cocks her hip, and she goes, I bet you wouldn't sponsor me. And, you know, I could toss and say, yes. So I said, well, yes, I will. She almost fell over. That, yes, has been one of the biggest blessings of my life. She has been an amazing person to sponsor and have as a friend and as a lesson giver. She has changed from being so, I'm just hurt and trauma filled, to being one of the best hug givers and laugh givers and joy givers. I know, and most of you know who I'm talking about, and it's taken a long time for her to trust people and to heal and to work through these steps. But God has done an amazing thing in that woman. And just to see her today and the joy that she has in her life, and to see what she thinks about a flower, to see what she thinks about a bug, or, you know, all these things of nature. She's just so joy-filled and so kind, and she never says no to anybody. She's just got such a big heart. And from being this little green rock when I met her, you know, to this just amazing marshmallow of love. It's just amazing what God has done in her life. But you know, that's, you know, I was ready, you know, and just to say yes, you know, but I was so terrified that night to share my story. You know, I was just puking, you know, I was just terrified. But to look at what, you know, because I said yes to that, just, you know, how he's changed both of our lives, it was just remarkable. And then 8 loves, made a list of all the people we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. You know, that list was, I was on that list, a big part of that list, because I had, you know, ignored myself and hurt myself and been so judgmental of myself. And, you know, I did not know how to take care of myself and how to make amends to myself. I thought that was ridiculous, you know, when she said, you owe yourself amends. But teaching myself self-care and self-love and to change the dialogue in my head. And I remember going to adult children with alcoholics meetings, and what I heard in those rooms and the bareness that I heard in those rooms terrified me, you know? And that was exactly what Claire meant about self-care and self-love, is to look at yourself and get to know yourself and see what you've been through. And I just remember after the first meeting, it's like, oh no, we're not going there. We're gonna put that in a tackle box and we're gonna lock it up and we are gonna throw it at the bottom of the sea, because those are emotions that we're not ever gonna address. But you know, over time, you know, I get out a lure or I get out a bobber, you know, and look at it and deal with it, you know, and I don't know, I get the locker box, the tackle box out every now and then and deal with one, you know, but that's a big thing is being able to look at yourself and love yourself and being able to make those amends. And it's important to make amends to the other people outside, very important. But putting myself on that list is very difficult. And that was a big, hard thing to write down. And then step 9, that responsibility of, you know, who's on the list and how are you going to make those amends? The responsibility of actually doing that and taking responsibility for my life and taking responsibility for the damage and harm. I never took responsibility for everything. I always blamed you. It was always your fault. And that's how I got through life. Because if I did something that wasn't kind or good or made me look bad, I just could blame you. I didn't have to do anything about it. I just blamed you and drank over it to, you know, to kind of get to numb my feelings. So now as a sober alcoholic, I have to own what I do. And I have to look at how I feel and how I make you feel. And I have to do that before I act, if I catch myself correctly. And so when I talk about responsibility, I also have to look at my responsibility for others too. how am I helping my community? How am I helping my solar sisters and brothers? And am I being a good example? How am I helping my church or my neighborhood? Because before I never thought of those things. How am I being a citizen? Because again, I never thought. But now today, sober, I am one of. And I'm able to be one of. I wasn't able to be one of. I didn't give a damn. But now I do. I can, and I'm capable. And it's amazing that I can have so many plates in the air, you know, and I can participate. And God has given me that capability. And I am certain that, you know, when we say our prayers every morning, right, we ask for that. You know, give me intelligence, give me what I need for today, give me the insight I need for today. And we use that wisely. And then, of course, our step 10 discipline. I have no discipline in any area of my life. And we, you know, continue to take personal inventory when we were wrong, probably admitted it. I never looked inside because it was a dark abyss, you know. And, you know, if I did, it just needed more booze, you know. And that was a great way, you know, because if I had to look in there, it was just back to fix it. And or we needed to sit at the bar to look inside, you know, and we'd have to go reflect. And now it's so you know, I talked about how I did the 4 different inventories, and the spot inventory is obviously the best because I catch myself when I hurt someone, you know, and I can immediately stop and say, oops, that hurt. And you know, and sometimes I don't. I have to think back at the end of the day, and it's like, well, that conversation probably went sideways. I need to say something about that, and then I can do that. But you know, that was something that I never did before, and I'm able to do that now. And then also too, it gives me, when I'm sponsoring somebody, it gives me the ability to, iron sharpens iron, and I'm not a confrontational person usually. And it gives me the opportunity to be able to say, stop, we need to address something. And in love, I can do it in love. And that is something where I have the responsibility, if I'm sponsoring somebody, to say, you know, hey, I asked you to do this and you haven't done this, or we were going to do this and this hasn't gotten done, or hey, did you get this done? Let's go over it. And usually, you know, a lot of sponsors are like, hey, I want you to check in with me every day, and I'm not that, because the way I sponsor is, it's your sobriety. I want you to do your program, and then if something's broken, then we'll talk about it. But it's your journey. And I want you, you know, if you're going to work the steps, I want to see how you're working the steps. But if you're stuck somewhere, let's work on it. But, and then step 11, awareness, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood and pray only for knowledge of His will for us and carrying that out. This awareness, my sponsor does this amazing. She is such a great person to challenge me to seek and to meditate and to find different ways of seeking God. You know, I didn't have an idea of certain areas and different ways of meditating, and she's challenged me. She challenged me to do this book of gratitude for a month. And, you know, it was so outside of my comfort zone, and I love that she challenged me to do that. And then she challenged me for this year to do this whole program of a meditation and a different thing. And it was amazing. It completely changed my life, and I just love that. Because it pushes me towards a different kind of awareness and pushes me towards seeking, and it's a seeker. I just love that. And I'm grateful for that. And I hope every morning I have a group chat with my sponsees, and I always put something out there, you know, that's meditative or thoughtful, and just to kind of get them going for the day. And you know, just so that we have that awareness that God is out there and that we can see throughout the day and honor him. And honor him in our words and honor him in our deeds. And, that is something that, if we're not doing that, that conscious contact we're missing that. And that's our survival. That's the whole reason we're sober, is to have that conscious contact. And so, that awareness and with prayer and meditation, is, and to pray for the knowledge that he wants us to do is, I had no way of doing that for 30 years, because I had drunk that relationship away. And so now that I have that, it's something I guard very preciously. And I want to seek ways to enhance that and grow that and mature that and see it in other people. I want to see how other people do it. And I can see the spark in other people's lives and see it in their eyes. And it's a beautiful thing to see and know and be. And then of course, we're back to step 12, right? And that's here where we are today, and that's sharing our experience, strength, and health with people. And I am so grateful to have been able to share this time with you. And I have learned a lot, and I have met so many new people, and I'm so grateful for this time. So thanks.